Right, a quick lesson, basic piano skills, music theory and jazz harmony. There's our basic chord scale in the key of C, and it's called diatonic because all the notes in it are related and harmonious. Play it for you. If you don't play any piano, you can quickly learn these chords yourself. So we have our basic C triad. That's our one chord. We use the Roman numerals to avoid confusion with the numbers we use in chords sometimes, like a C sixth chord. So we use the Roman numerals in this case. So that's our one chord. With almost exactly the same shape, we move it up one step. That gives us our second note of the scale, D minor in this case. And we have the E minor, F, G, and A minor. If you've never played any piano, just practice those. Bear in mind, of course, you've got your A minor there, but you've also got your A minor there. And equally, you've got your G there, and you've got the G there. But you play lots of songs just using those 6 chords that you've got there. You can make it sound a bit fuller by putting a bass note in as well. It's a Bob Dylan song called Like a Rolling Stone. You could learn the entire song just by playing those chords. And the person who played organ on that session played organ for the very first time and played on a very famous record just by using those 5 chords. Okay, see if you can work it out yourself. Now, with those chords, that's the foundation of some jazz harmony as well. Okay, in that in jazz you often have a progression. It's called a 2-5-1. In this particular case, you can see we've got our 2 chord, our 5 chord, and our 1 chord. We deliberately don't say D minor, G and C because in a jazz band you might have an alto saxophone player who's playing in a different key to everyone else. You might have a tenor saxophone player who's playing a different key as well. And then you've got your piano player and your bass player who are playing in concert pitch. So to avoid confusion, you tend to use the numbers. Because a 2-5-1 for me on the piano now is D minor, G, C. But on a tenor saxophone, it would be the chords E minor, A, D. So it gets confusing if you don't use the numbers. Now, to jazz up this scale, all we can do is add another note, the same interval. There's always a gap between the notes I'm playing. Now C becomes a major 7th. Put the bass in. And you can hear it's just got a slightly sweeter, more kind of complex harmony, which is perfect for jazz. When we go to the D minor, we do the same thing. Now it becomes a 7th. E minor the same. F becomes a major 7th. And G becomes a G7th. And if we wanted, we could put the A minor at the top there. So all those chords now, so I'm going to go F. Sounds kind of very sort of straightforward and plain. You put the 7ths in. It takes on a different jazzy texture. Okay. So a common pattern in jazz is just to constantly move between the 2, the 5 and the 1. There's a famous song called I Get a Kick Out of You that does that. It's got that simple melody in, but the melody's played over these changes. And it does it several times all the way through the song. Now, you'll notice that move from that chord to that chord suddenly gets quite tingly, getting a bit higher up the register of the piano, and it sounds just a bit kind of awkward and not as nice. So what we could do is that part of the chord there, we can actually play here, and it's a smoother transition to the C. So listen to it. In that particular case, I didn't just play a G7th, I played a G9th. We like 9th chords in jazz, and basically it's the number of the scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We're adding a note, the 9th note of the scale as well as the 7th. I'm playing it with 2 hands to make it easy, putting the bass note in my left hand. So listen to that change now. There's our 1 chord, here's our 2 chord. We've got some basic kind of jazz changes there that even if you've never played any piano, you could play that pretty easy, I think. Even if it's just on some little kind of kids keyboard you've got. It's useful to know some of this theory and be able to visualise it on the piano, because the piano is a much more linear instrument, unlike, say, the guitar. Useful stuff for the drummers too, bass, because we see how the changes in the chord physically move around this scale. Now, let's take it on a little further. Jazz musicians always like to mess up the harmony a little bit and put bits of kind of discord in. A common chord in this sort of pattern is to go to the G 9th, but we actually flatten the 9th note by 1 little step onto a black note. Notice that little bit of tension there, a little bit of a sinister feel to that chord before we resolve it. So now it sounds like this. Ooh, mistake in my left hand. Fix it this time, hopefully. Could even make that C if we wanted, rather than a major 7th. There's a 7th, we can make it a major 9th. I'm just putting that note at the top of it, the 9th. So we've got this pattern now. There's our flat 9th. There's our major 7th. Okay, and just to make it simpler, there's the chords we're using. D minor 7th, 7th note, G 9th, but we're flattening the 9th, and C major 7th, but rather than write out C major 7th, we use a little triangle to suggest that that's got that extra coloured note. These are called extended chords when we add another note to the top of our normal triad. Okay, there's an extra extension. Just practicing that quite a few times. It'll sound nice, impress people with your jazz skills, add a little bit more of an arpeggio to the style of it. Bear in mind, when musicians solo over the top of these changes, they might be using the arpeggios of the chord as a basis of a solo. Just by me messing around with those arpeggios there, I'm creating a bit of a melody. And I'm not actually using a scale there, I'm using the chord arpeggios, which is why jazz musicians, when they're improvising, often want the chords in front of them, because they'll use the chord arpeggios as part of the kind of foundation of the solo. Now, moving on again. In the course of a song like I Get a Kick Out of You, I get no kick from champagne. Mere alcohol doesn't thrill me at all. Tell me, baby, why should it be true? Now, there's a new chord coming in there. Okay, it was from our original scale, a bit like an A minor there, but we're going to make it a major, just to get the black note in, to give it that jazz colour. We're adding a 9th to it as well, and in this particular case, it's the 6th chord of the scale, but it acts like a pivot. It lets our ears know that we're going somewhere else or we're at the end of a phrase, and it follows quite nicely back into the D minor. So listen to that change again. There's our home chord, and if it's I Get a Kick Out of You, it's starting on that note. If you sing along with me, we're just going up the scale. I get no kick from champagne. Mere alcohol doesn't thrill me at all. Tell me, baby, why should it be true? Comes the pivot chord, that I get a kick out of you. Another change that you sometimes get in a jazz song, particularly at the end, you have a 2-5-1 progression, 2-5-1 to the C, but then you have an extra 3-6 at the end of it, and it creates a sort of loop around. Listen for this change now, so 2-5, but before we go to the 1, we're going to go 3-6, and then we go back to a 2-5 before we resolve. So it could go, I get a kick, I get a kick, I get a kick out of you. It's also very similar changes to the Christmas song, Paul McCartney one, I think. So in that particular case, it's shown the early influence of jazz on Paul McCartney as a musician. His dad was a jazz musician. He learned how to play piano when he was living at home with his dad, and he would have heard changes like that all the time. So when he comes to write his Christmas song, he's going for a fairly conventional jazz change there. The other thing that you get sometimes in jazz is you'll have things called chord substitutions, and that's where the chord that we're expecting, our ears are thinking, yeah, we're going to a C. But you might occasionally put in a kind of a chord that's unexpected. You're substituting a chord to give it extra tension. So at the end of that song, instead of going, I get a kick out of you, and finishing on the C, could go, I get a kick out of you. Just gone very briefly there to an A flat major 7th chord before I go back to the C. Acts as a sort of interrupted cadence, and that jazz substitution there just takes us in a new direction musically, just for one bar, surprises the listener, maybe surprises other jazz musicians who are not used to hearing that change, and it's part of the ongoing creativity that a jazz musician has, trying to find little interesting changes and embellishments to the chords, just to give them extra colour. So to recap, learn your basic chord triads if you're not a piano player. If you're slightly more advanced than that, learn some of those extended chords. There's your major 7th. Be fairly easy to work out a 6th chord from there, because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's your 6th chord. If it was a major 7th with a 9th, you got it at the top there. We've got our flat 9th in that particular case. And just practice those arpeggios. In order to kind of get an idea of some melodic phrases that you might use over the changes. I'll be doing a video doing some similar stuff, but on the guitar, for the guitar players to see how these changes work in the context of your own instrument. Good luck.